All right, we are back. My next guest, Greg Gamet, the co-founder and CEO of several successful businesses, including Denver Consulting Group, CannaScore, Kush Bottles Colorado, Dank Dispensary, and Elm Street Properties. Greg was also just named Entrepreneur of the Year by a prestigious trade magazine. Greg is on the board of directors of several organizations and is widely considered one of the experts in his industry. Greg Gamet, welcome to Money for Lunch.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You bet, you bet. All right, let's talk about this. Greg, you have several companies and products. Tell us a little bit about you and give us a little history background about your businesses.
Okay, I'll try not to take up the whole interview here, but I'm going to turn the clock back to 2009 when I was operating a large landscape and land development company. Medical marijuana was passed in Colorado, so I started a dispensary called Dank, parent company JGB Ventures, in August of 2009. Kind of grew slow over the next 5 years. I kept doing what I was doing. I had a business partner named Justin Jones who co-founded it with me, and then Brian Sullivan came along. He is a lawyer and a partner as well, about a couple months after the partners started the business. Medical marijuana was good to us, but once retail hit, we were one of the first ones to open up January 2014. Sales went through the roof. I stopped giving hard bids and doing hard business and started doing 100% of the green industry business. But with the entrepreneurial spirit, we couldn't find good packaging, so I founded Kush Bottles Colorado, which is a packaging company. The groundwork was already laid by a couple founders, Dallas and Nick out in California. They started Kush Bottles out in California. We just kind of had a distribution agreement. Now we're all together, and we're publicly traded on the market right now. KSHB is the symbol. We're on the over-the-counter market. And from that, DenverConsultingGroup was born to help other people do what we did in the industry. And then CannaScore is a software company that we recently founded last year that rates your compliancy kind of like a FICO score for the banking industry. So it's a kind of a regulatory arm for each bank to make sure businesses aren't laundering money and following the state laws without ambiguity, as the Cole memo says. But that's a quick version of it. I'm sure we'll get into a few of these as we move on here. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about this. Tell us a little bit more about Denver Consulting Group. Exactly what do you do, and tell us, who's your typical client? Okay, we have two different kinds of typical clients. I'll start out with the business that's already going. So we all have a dispensary marijuana grow op here in Colorado. We also work in every state. There's medical or retail marijuana. There's 24 of those total. The recreational states, Washington, Oregon, Alaska, Colorado, bear a lot of business right now because the recreational side's so new. But we'll take the existing customer and figure out if they need SOP manuals, employee handbooks. We'll train their individuals on site here at our training center. We'll also let them shadow our employees. We'll go in and do audits using the CannaScore software to find out where their compliant deficiencies are so they can kind of, navigate the rules better so they're not getting fined or shut down. We'll also give them marketing material. We'll design their ad for them. We'll give them recommendations of where to run their ads. Really, it's no pun intended, but it's the whole gamut when it comes to the consulting side of thing. We're seed to sell, and one of our specialties is inventory tracking and getting people involved in that. That's where the big lack was. So some of these states are requiring a Franwell product called Metric in Oregon and here in some parts in California. We're experts on that. It's a inventory tracking system that uses RFID tags, so you know exactly where your plants are at all times. Not that they're going to get up and run away, but they do grow and move rooms and that kind of thing. So that's on the consulting side. Yeah, that's amazing. Let me ask you this, okay, because I think Colorado is, I think the world is looking at Colorado, certainly the U.S. And so has, first of all, Colorado, I think,
beginning of this year announced that they had solved all their deficit issues because of the boom that marijuana has produced for them. And I wanted to get your take on this. You live there in Denver?
I live in Denver,
Okay.
city of Denver, Denver County. Lived here for about 16 years now. I moved here from Iowa.
Okay.
So the difference between go ahead.
I was going to say, have you noticed, what were everybody was concerned about crime rate, this and what do you call it, young people just being stoned out of their mind on a regular basis. Have you seen any of that?
I haven't seen anything. The numbers, the proof is in the numbers. Crime rate has dropped since recreational marijuana has been passed. Teen usage has gone down. It's the black market is pretty much dried up. If I wouldn't really know where to look on the black market at this point, but as far as I know, it's really hard for people to produce and procure and sell marijuana on the black market here, because you can go into a store and have 40 different strains to choose from that are tested and clean amongst edibles, and you're going to get some really good knowledge as you're buying these different products now. And back in the day, buying black market marijuana was a bit of a shady thing. Well, now we've taken the crazy ant out of the basement, so to speak, and now everybody can come in and see that it's a real business, and it's and the profits are there if you're running your business right. The other thing, the only difference I see in Colorado now is the housing market, the rental rates, and traffic has all gone up.
I love it. Yeah, I think that what we're seeing here with the marijuana deal is the same thing that we saw with Prohibition. However, the difference is this: alcohol, as far as I know, things like what do you call it, liquor, whiskey and so on, don't really cure anything, right? But marijuana has a medicinal purpose. It really solves problems. It helps people in so many different ways besides the recreational part.
Well, other than the fact that it can't kill you either. There's three ways you can die from marijuana. A pellet of it can fall on your head, you can choke on it, or a guy named marijuana can shoot you. Go back to looking at the figures of what alcohol can actually do to your body, to the community, and with drunk driving and people dying of cirrhosis of the liver, it's really night and day to compare the two.
Right.
Colorado's bill was to regulate marijuana like alcohol. So the next phase of this is trying to get, places where people can gather and use the product together and share the product. So much like a bar, right now that's not allowed, but there's some bills being passed now. When you look at the facts, peanuts kill more people a year than marijuana. So, there hasn't been a recorded death in history from overdosing from marijuana. So really that negative view of marijuana has been brought forth from, the early 1910s and 1920s for, people put the negative spin on it for business purposes. But I think it's to the point now where it's becoming, somewhat mainstream.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited. I can't wait to be able to invest in the industry myself. I think it's a fantastic opportunity. And let's talk about this. You mentioned, is it CannaScore, the one that helps people with compliance?
Yeah, so CannaScore is a software program. It's different in each state because the rules and regulations are different each state. So basically we took the rules, made a list of questions, and run that through an algorithm that spits out a score, much like a FICO score or Duns & Bradstreet score. But instead of really all the P&Ls pretty much in this industry are glossy and shiny, and banks love those. But the real risk for a bank to have a customer is how compliant they are, because they could be shut down the next day. Banks just don't want your account. They want your account. They want to lend you money. They want to make money in several different ways.
And they don't want to be embarrassed.
Oh, exactly. So this is one way for the banking to add a compliant arm to their bank without hiring 15 investigators that go out and do it. They kind of require their customers to do it. This is also good for landlords. This is also good for me. Like, I'm not in the day-to-day over at Dank as much as I used to be. So, we have a CannaScore over there goes in and does this as a third-party audit. There's also an application coming out on this where businesses will be able to use a CannaScore app and get pretty close, but they won't get a final score until they get a third-party audit. But it's, I always tell everybody, when you run a marijuana business, you're actually running a compliant business. It's much like running a bank. There's a lot of rules and regulations that can get you shut down immediately if you don't follow them. So once you figure out how to run a compliant business, we get to grow a little bit of marijuana and sell it to people.
I love it, man. I love it. All right, so tell us, you're publicly traded on what exchange?
We're on the OTC market right now, Kush Bottles. It's KSHB. We're currently in a blackout period, so I got to be careful what I say. But all our financials are posted there. It's a pretty good investment opportunity. Not just us. I'm just saying the industry as a whole. But you want to be real careful. Several businesses, didn't do full S1 filings. They've done filings using shell companies and revenues from different streams. But you have to do all that research on your own and talk to your, financial advisor on that end.
Sure.
Marijuana, the marijuana industry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I wanted to talk a little bit about how important marketing and public relations is to your success, because you're already in a very competitive industry, right? I mean, it was competitive from day one, and so talk about that. Talk about marketing.
Well, it becomes more competitive every day. There's new businesses open up. Our dispensary used to be the only one within a 10-block radius, 20, 30-block radius. Now there's 5 or 6. But so, as far as marketing and PR, it's really important that you grow your brand. In the marijuana industry, if you have the best product, word of mouth travels really great. In a lot of industries, you build a great package around it, and you brand it, put it in a nice label on it. That's important on this side, but you got to remember, patients and customers can't touch that package till they purchase it. So you got to have something that looks good from like 10 or 15 feet away. But we've worked hard to build brands that resonate with our audience and create a distinction in the marketplace. So PR is just one of the vehicles, so we can get the news and build credibility among potential customers and investors out there, because everybody's looking to expand. So, one day a customer that comes in your store, the next day could be calling you on the phone and say, I love the experience so much, I want one of these in, so-and-so California. How do I do it? So, branding and respect, it's just across the board. It's same as selling a soft drink or a alcohol beverage.
Now, back up a second. Let me ask you this, because you said that they're not allowed to touch the product. In other words, they can't sit there and look. They cannot hold a what's it called, a bud? Is it called buds? Or they cannot hold a sample in their hand.
Flowers. Well, we can give them a jar. They can open. This is Colorado law.
Right.
We give them a jar, they can open the lid, they can smell it, but they can't touch it. Now, if they wanted a gummy bear edible or a gummy edible or a cookie from the back, we can hand them the product while they're on camera right there, where they can look on the back and see the ingredients. I mean, it's a pretty sophisticated label now that we have. It looks, a lot of the products look like they could be on the shelf at Target or Walmart or any of those places. But, we can't have it sitting out in the middle of the store for rules and regulations, but for obvious reasons, so someone doesn't put it in their pocket. Because sometimes a bottle, you could fit 5 bottles in your pocket that contain, $2,000 worth of merchandise. So the MED, which is the medical or the marijuana enforcement division here in Colorado, we've worked very closely with them, and they've actually trained some of their employees in our facility. Of course, want that exchange between we call the bud tender, the person that's serving the flowers and the concentrates, of the bud tender, so the bartender. They ask for product and they get information on that product as they're looking at it, but they can't walk around with it. They have to stand right there at the counter.
Yeah, that's amazing. The bud tender, I love that. That's great. I think it's a great use of. I think it's fantastic. Oh man. Oh, that's funny as all get out. All right,
what state are you guys located in?
We're located in Arizona.
Arizona. So you have medical marijuana program there, and I encourage everybody. I mean, if you do come to Colorado, Oregon, or Washington, even if you don't just come by and see the process. It's real people working real jobs in a real industry. So it's a lot of people. We get 42% out of state at our Dank facility. So when I'm having a rough day, I can just go over, stand in our store, and I call it like the Midwest factor. All the Midwesterns that are driving here for vacation, coming in for the first time, and they just can't believe that they have access to this. And many of the customers on the recreational side from out of state are here to treat a medical condition. So
Sure.
it's great to be able to see people get help that way.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. You know what? And again, this is what I like about marijuana. Yes, you can use it for recreational purposes. You can also use it, as we mentioned, to treat medical issues. To me, it's been a long time in coming. I'm grateful to see it. What do you call it? I don't know. I guess become legalized, and it's of all the things that we need to worry about, marijuana is probably one of the few things. And you know, it also makes sense to me because the minute that marijuana became legal in Colorado, all the black market's gone. There's no, you know, that is completely gone. And so if we were to follow suit in other states, you would see that crime completely disappear. You would also see the export from Mexico disappear. It's incredible.
Well, you got to think too. You know, the big argument is that marijuana is a gateway drug, and I don't agree with the argument. But let's just say that's true. Well, one of the reasons that might have been true in the past is you go see the guy that, you know, in a dark alley or his basement or whatever that had marijuana. Well, he had other products he'd like to push. He had, you know, maybe cocaine, maybe some other controlled substances that he would push at the same time. You go into a dispensary, we can't even carry Coca-Cola or non-infused products. Everything in the store is infused with marijuana. There's no other products that we can entice people to come in. You're coming to the store for one thing, and that's marijuana. You can't get anything else, and it's tracked and regulated by the gram, and you're paying taxes on it. You know, we did $996 million last year in Colorado. $42 million of it went to the school systems.
There you go. And see,
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. You know, every state that I visit, all the schools are dying for money. Politicians consistently cut the education budget. And you know, here's a great way to solve that issue. Back to marijuana being a gateway drug, I can tell you from personal experience, you know, I've never wanted to do something else because other than eat. Marijuana is a gateway drug to, you know, is a gateway to eating, and not a gateway drug. It's a gateway to eating. That's about it. But you know, from my personal experience as a young man, I didn't want to do anything else. And I like what you said there about the fact that, you know, when you have a professional drug pusher who has a invested interest to not only sell you marijuana, but to sell you this or sell you that or whatever. That's his job. That's what he's trying to do.
Absolutely.
You know, anyway, so getting away from that, I just think it's such a fabulous opportunity. As you mentioned, you know, talk to your financial advisor and see if it's a good fit for your portfolio. But I think it's a great idea. And I think that its time has come. Let me ask you this. What do you see happening either in your company or in the industry in the next 5 years?
Well, as new states legalize, it'll boom. So let's just take Colorado's numbers. We did $996 million, like I said a minute ago. If you take that by population, California will be doing $10 billion a year. Massachusetts, Maine, Michigan are all looking at legalizing recreational here in the fall. Some market analysts say Massachusetts will be a $7 billion industry because of the population density on the East Coast. People can drive there. In Maine, a $3 billion industry, even though it's, you know, like a lot like Colorado, but they'll get a lot of movement from, you know, Boston, Massachusetts, New York, all those other. We have 5.5 million roughly people in Colorado, and we did almost $1 billion. So tourism. We call it pot tourism here. Hotels are full. Rental cars is hard to find. I mean, they're finally catching up with that. But as a nation, you know, we're at 24 legal states for medical marijuana right now. So we're at the tipping point. A lot of it has to do with who gets elected. So if you have a very strong stance that you want marijuana legal, you should look at what candidates follow that, either on the Democrat side or Republican side, because really marijuana should be a nonpartisan issue. We've got people in Texas quoting the Bible in favor of marijuana now, saying God didn't put it here on the planet as a mistake. So all types and all, as our manager at Dank, everybody there from Texas. We were just featured on the Bill O'Reilly show. I'm not, I'm a huge Fox News fan, but it's good to see, programs and conservative programs like that coming to the marijuana industry and kind of open up people's eyes and shedding a positive light on the industry. Although it was a humorous video that they did, it was a Waters piece. But if people start looking at this and the propaganda isn't all negative on marijuana, you can see states are turning. Places like Iowa, Missouri, Oklahoma, and the two bookends of the South, I call it, Florida and Texas. And those two are looking to go pretty quick here. But as those bookends of the South go, you'll even see the Bible Belt starting to get the squeeze. So really, it's all about propaganda. It's all been negative up until probably 2009, and now we're starting to get, doctors and radio talk show hosts like yourself that are open to having people in the industry on their shows to talk about the benefit.
Absolutely. Well, and again, I think that if people put their fear aside, they put their prejudice aside, and they do some research, they'll find that cannabis is a fantastic, I don't want to use the word cure-all, but it is a great solution for many, many problems that are facing not only the elderly but the sick. There's just scores of research where children were treated with edible cannabis or in pill form cannabis, and their seizures stopped.
Oh, I've seen it firsthand. And we're not even, this is the tip of the iceberg. We're not talking about what it can do for the environment. Hempcrete and clothing and biomass and biofuel and paper products. It is an unbelievable plant that has thousands of uses that, the medical marijuana side is now opening people up to it. We've got people farming hemp here in Colorado now. It's very lucrative. The CBD extract, which there's, not to give a big class here, there's THC and CBDs and CBAs and CBNs, and all of those have medical benefits. But then the left behind product, the stock stems, leaves, they make great oils and clothing and even concrete out of. So the farther, if you really think an environment is a big issue, the future environment and what happens is a big issue, you should really do some research on what cannabis and hemp and marijuana can do for the environment.
Yep, I love it. You know what? It's been a pleasure having you on the show today. I look forward to having you back and talk more about the industry as well as the growth that you guys are experiencing there. Greg Gamet, it's like I said, it's been a pleasure, and looking forward to having you back again.
Okay, yeah, real quick, I wanted to thank you guys for having me, and thank Randy Huff for setting this up. Great PR guy at Innovate, and you can visit us at www.DenverConsultingGroup.com, and from there you can branch out to all the other businesses. And I do appreciate the time, guys. All righty.
Good stuff there from Greg Gamet. Really, we covered the gamut. I know he's probably tired of that pun, but, we did cover quite a bit about the marijuana industry, both the recreational side, the financial side, the municipality of it, the medical side. I mean, to me, it is something that we need to look at from all sides and come to a conclusion that it's a worthwhile investment. And I don't mean for you financially, but for the states, for our education system, for our medical system. It is something that we need to become aggressive about so we can save lives and help our communities.